Hey guys, I'm Leo Mendez and today I have a new video. I got on my mesa de prueba the Eyesy by Guitari Guitari, a pretty interesting visual device that has multiple algorithms to transform audio into image. So, if you want to learn more, acompáñenme a ver el siguiente video. Eyesy is an excellent visual device from Guitari Guitari, a company that already has a long history making visual synthesizers. I even have this one that I love called Vidscope, and it was launched on different flavors. Sadly, it's no longer on the market, but certainly is super fun. One really interesting thing about the Eyesy is that it's based on the Python language, so if you know a little bit about this programming language, surely you're gonna get much more out of it than I do. In any case, the Eyesy has a good amount of algorithms, and thanks to its controls, it's super good for live sets, so there's nothing to worry about. Also, there's a good number of users out there making new algorithms and sharing their knowledge on the official forum for the device. So, if you have questions or new modes, I will leave the link down below. On the back, the Eyesy has multiple inputs and outputs that allows us to connect it with different devices. For example, we have an analog video output, also an HDMI output. On this side, we have a TRS type MIDI input as well as an audio input. On the side, we have the USB port to connect the Wi-Fi network adapter that is included in the package. Now, we already have the Eyesy connected to the power supply as well as an HDMI cable. So, let's turn on the unit. While the indication LED is in blue, means that the device is starting. When the LED turns white, it's ready to use. Now I will send the sound of my voice as well as all the instruments connected to my mixer with this cable to the back. Then you will immediately notice that the algorithm converts my voice into graphics, and all of this in real time. In the same way, out of the frame, I have the Digitakt, so let's send some rhythms and observe the reaction. In the panel, we can see several buttons and knobs that allows us to interact with the graphics of the Eyesy. In the upper left corner, we have the button known as OSD, on-screen display, that allows us to see important information about the algorithm. On this menu, we see the name of the algorithm as well as the scene number. Also, if we are sending MIDI notes, the position of the knobs, the trigger, and we can even see a vocoder that allows us to see the input and gain from the audio input. The next button is known as Shift and allows us to change the input gain as well as the trigger source, and even the MIDI channel that we will use to send triggers to the algorithm. The next button is the persistence toggle that allows us to change from a mode that deletes the information between each of the frames to another mode that accumulates information and graphics. At the bottom of the panel, we have another set of buttons starting with the mode selector. As we can see on our screen, we have 66 modes or algorithms that we can choose through the following buttons. The next two buttons allows us to choose between the saved scenes. In these scenes, we can store both the information in our knobs as well as the selected mode. To create a new scene is quite simple. We need to select a mode, change the parameters until we are comfortable, and then press save. Once we save it, we can completely modify the parameters, and if we want to access the scene again, we have to go to the scene selection, in this case the 119. The next button is known as a screenshot and allows us to take a screenshot and store it on the SD card. The last button is known as trigger and allows us to get the maximum effect on the selected mode. Now let's use the Digitakt to send MIDI information to the Eyesy. We need to remember that the knobs to map are these 5 and they correspond to the control change position 21 to 25. Also, Eyesy receives MIDI information on TRS, so you will need a cable like this, from TRS to MIDI in type A. To connect it, it's quite simple. We only need to go from the MIDI out on the Digitakt and go to the TRS input on the Eyesy in the back. For example, to control the Eyesy with a Digitakt, we have to use the MIDI tracks. First, let's clear a pattern, in this case the number 11. Then we need to select a MIDI track, in this case the MIDI A, and we have to go to the source section. In this case we need to press function and this button to enable MIDI channel 1 on the MIDI track A. Now let's go to the amplification section and we can see the sense of these knobs. Let's remember that the Eyesy is mapped from the CC21 to the CC25. We can map these knobs pretty easy. The first one we're gonna map, it's gonna be the 21, the second one, the 22, and so on. Now, in the filter section, we can find the values that we're going to send to the Eyesy parameters. If we want to sequence the CC22 that corresponds to the size of the spheres, we can do it as follows. First, we press the recording button and select some steps to create the classic parameter locking. For example, let's modify the step number 1, the step number 9, the step number 5, the step number 13, and also the step 11. If we play this sequence, we will see a change in the size of the spheres even if we do not have any audio that modifies the mode. To take this a step further, we're going to use the following knob that is associated with the background color, in this case at the CC25, in the same way. We're going to modify some steps. Now let's press play and see the action. Finally, we can also sequence the program change, and in that way we will change between the scenes. On the step 1, we will have the scene number 1. In the step 5, we had the scene 119. In the step 9, we had another scene, the 44. And in the step 13, we're gonna use the scene 115. Then, let's watch this action. If we add a groove to this, it will look like this. Also, we can even use the remaining knobs to send more information to the Eyesy and keep having fun while jamming with the device. The creature and Guitari Eyesy is a delight from the outside to the inside. The color of the chassis is spectacular. Orange, one of my favorite colors. Also, the wooden buttons are fantastic. The tactile part, it's super enjoyable, and of course, what we see on the graphic part, it's just amazing. So, if you're a musician looking to implement a visual part to your show, the Eyesy is gonna be perfect for you. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Yo soy Leo Méndez y nos vemos a la próxima.